Hello my book besties, welcome to my March reading wrap up. I am so excited because this is technically the first reading wrap up that I'm doing in 2024. I was in a massive reading slump last month, and in January I was pretty much traveling the entire time, so I didn't really get any reading done. So this March reading wrap up is sort of also combining January and February together as well, even though I didn't really read much then. But these are the books that we're going to be talking about today. I am so excited to be finally back with a reading wrap-up video, to be talking about the books that I've recently read. I'm so here for it. I'm so excited. If you guys want to see the books on my April TBR, that video is already up, so I will have it linked down below if you haven't already watched it. But let's get into my March reading wrap-up. So this is the first book that I actually read in 2024, and that is Betting on You by Lynn Painter. You guys know I'm a huge Lynn Painter fan, especially for her YA romances. They're just always so good. So I was really excited to pick this one up because this is her newest release. So in this book we're following Bailey and Charlie, and they first meet at an airport, and they don't really have the best first impressions of each other. They are total opposites. Like, Charlie is very much a cynical person and Bailey is, I don't even know how to describe her, but they're very opposites and they don't really get along, and they have to sit next to each other on a plane. Then they go for some time without seeing each other, then they bump into each other again, and then they have a third encounter together a couple of years later because they're both working at the same place, and they both make this bet that two of their co-workers are actually going to get together. Bailey is like, no, there's no chance that's gonna happen, and Charlie's like, it's definitely gonna happen. And then Charlie and Bailey end up getting themselves into a fake dating situation because Bailey's mother is dating this new person and she is not okay with it. She's just like, this is not happening. And then Charlie and Bailey come up with this idea, why don't we fake date around your parents, make things really uncomfortable to the point that the guy just, you know, doesn't hang around for too long. That is pretty much how the fake dating starts. Although I really did like this book, what I found super interesting was that I actually preferred Bailey and Charlie as friends more than lovers, because I feel like their friendship dynamic worked really well, more than their romance. I don't know if that's just me that thought of it that way, but that's how I felt about this book. One thing I really did like about this book though was that both Charlie and Bailey really bonded through both of them being a child of divorce and, you know, having a broken family essentially, and the way that they connected through that. That's a big plot line in this book, and I really enjoyed reading about that, to be honest. Like, seeing two people that have come from broken families and can really relate to each other and really open up to each other about their struggles with dealing with this, because even though they both have divorced parents, they both have different experiences obviously with that. And just reading about how, even though they have different experiences, how they really like connect with each other through that. Still tossing up between my rating for this one. I think I'm probably either rating it like a 3.5 or a 4 star, because like I said, the reason why I'm thinking more of a 3.5 star rating is because I didn't really ship these two as like a couple. I really like them as friends, but I don't know. I'm probably going to say I'm going to rate this one 3.5 stars. I definitely do still recommend this book. I think if I read this when I was younger, like when I was like 15 or something, I think I would have really loved this book a lot more, because I would have really been able to connect to it a lot more. But yeah, I'd probably give this one 3.5 stars. And guys, I finally did it after how many times I've been saying I'm gonna read this series and I just keep putting it off. I read The Summer I Turned Pretty trilogy. So I read all 3 books, which were The Summer I Turned Pretty, It's Not Summer Without You, and We'll Always Have Summer by Jenny Han. This is a little summer young adult romance trilogy. I'm sure you guys have all either read the book or watched the Amazon Prime series. I have yet to watch the Amazon Prime series, but I definitely want to now that I've finished the series, just to kind of see if I like the series more than the books, because unpopular opinion, I wasn't a huge fan of the books. I thought the books were okay, I will say that. Like, the whole series as a whole gets a 3-star rating. Both the first 2 books get 3 stars, and the last book I actually rated 2 stars. I really just did not like how the story went, and I just wasn't a huge fan of this book. And the series for me was a little disappointing because I was expecting to love it, because I love a good summer romance. I really like the setting though. The setting of Cousins Islands beach was just so summery and cozy and beachy, and the vibes were definitely there for the setting, but I just wasn't really invested in the story. I didn't really care about the characters. Belly, our main female character, just annoyed me the entire story, like all 3 books. She was just such an annoying character. I know she's like, obviously she's a teenager, like, yeah, but I think, I don't know, maybe it's because I read this book as a 25-year-old. That also being said, I do normally really do like young adult romances. I find them so fun and cute and cheesy, but with these books, they just didn't hit for me, so it was really disappointing. Whole series gets 3 stars, but basically you're following a main female character named Belly. Her mum and her brother have spent pretty much every summer together with Belly's mother's best friend, who also has 2 sons, and they're all like very close together, so they always spend the summer together at this beach house. This one summer, of course, Belly, going through her puberty stage, she has a bit of a glow up, she's turned pretty. This is her summer that she turns pretty, and there's a little bit of love triangle going on with Belly's mother's best friend's sons. So she has always been in love with this guy named Conrad, but there's also Jeremiah, who is the other brother who's more best friend with, I guess. Love triangle is always a hit or miss with me. It wasn't really necessarily the love triangle that bothered me much about this book. It was just I wasn't invested. I couldn't care less. Like, I had no connection to this book whatsoever, except for the fact that I really loved Belly's mother's best friend, Susanna. I loved her. She was definitely my favorite character in this book, so it really did get me emotional throughout the 2nd and the 3rd book. But yeah, I just wasn't a huge fan of this series, and I am so disappointed in that, because I literally thought I was going to be obsessed with this book, especially reading it during the summertime. I thought I was gonna really love it, but it just was a miss for me, unfortunately. The next book that I read was Wildfire by Hannah Grace. This is the 2nd book in the Maple Hills series. The 1st book was Icebreaker, which I absolutely loved, and this book was definitely no different, because I devoured this book. I loved it so much. It was so good. So this book is following Russ and Aurora. They pretty much have like this one-night stand at a party one day, and then Aurora leaves thinking that Russ is gonna ghost her, but he wasn't actually never gonna ghost her, so there was a little bit of miscommunication there, and then they think they're never going to see each other again, so it's fine. No, it's not, because these 2 end up volunteering to be camp counselors at this summer camp without knowing that the other is going to be there, and now they are kind of stuck to be with each other for the next 10 weeks at this summer camp as camp counselors in the same group. You kind of see their story progress and see how they kind of come together and sort out the miscommunication, which we love, and also the relationship between these 2. Love. I loved the setting. The summer camp setting gave me all the feels, all the cozy vibes. I loved it so much. Russ has now become my absolute favorite book boyfriend. Garrett Graham from The Deal was my favorite book boyfriend. Now I think Russ has overtaken that spot as #1 favorite book boyfriend of all time, because he was just so sweet. Like, he was the ultimate golden retriever kind of guy. He was just so, like, he was kind of more like on the shy, reserved side, and he was just like nothing but good vibes, and I loved him. And I also really loved Aurora as well. These 2 characters also have a very complex, I would say, background. They both come from families that have had major issues. They both have daddy issues as well, which we love some relatable content. So yeah, I really adored this book. I just don't even know what to say about this book, because I loved it so much. This couple was everything. Russ was everything. Aurora was everything. I really connected to Aurora, and I connected to Russ as well. I connected with both of these characters. I also loved the side characters in this book, and just the setting. This book was so close to being 5 stars. I feel like if I reread this again, it could potentially be a 5-star read, but I'm rating this one at 4.5 stars. So basically, I started this book in January on vacation, and then I took a break because obviously I didn't really end up reading too much on my vacation, and then I picked it up again in March, and I binged it and I finished it. So I feel like if I read this like closer together rather than having like a 1 to 2 month gap, I would have loved this a lot more, and it could have been 5 stars, but I'd be rating this one 4.5 stars. I did have a really good time reading it, and like I said, so far it is my favorite book that I've read this year, and I can definitely see this being in my top 10 favorite books of 2024 potentially. Definitely recommend reading this book. It was so good. Even if you weren't a fan fan of Icebreaker, I think you might like Wildfire. I like both of them. This one was just my favorite. I just loved it so much. And then the last book that I have to talk about is The Mistake by Elle Kennedy, which is the second book in the off-campus series. Finally got around to continuing this series, guys. It's been a long time coming, but we finally got there. So this is following the story of Logan and Grace. Logan is part of the hockey team. Grace is a freshman when they first meet. She is just such a relatable character. She was just so cute and sweet, innocent but like not naive, and like very relatable. I felt like I could relate a lot to Grace. She was very much like me as a female character in a book. Honestly, when I first started reading this book, I was like, I don't know if I'm actually really gonna like Logan, but throughout the story, really getting his backstory and everything really made me love Logan as a character. And obviously I loved Grace as a character as well. I love both of them, and this is just so good. Basically, in the story, Logan is still hung up over Hannah, who was someone that he thought he was initially in love with, but then he later discovers he was never really in love with Hannah. What he was really like in love with was wanting a relationship like what Hannah has with Garrett, who is his best friend. That's all he wanted. He never really had like actual proper feelings for Hannah. He was only wanting like what they had in a relationship. And then he's on full grovel mode throughout the story, trying to win Grace back. I will say the groveling and the getting back together does happen within 40% of the book, I would say. And then the rest of the story is focused on their relationship after that, and also Logan and his relationship with his father, which I honestly found really interesting to read about. I do still think that this book could have been a little bit shorter, because obviously they got back together within 40 to 50% of the book, and then the rest of the story is kind of backstory of Logan's life, which I really did like I said, but I feel like it could have been a little bit shorter and I would have liked it a little bit more. But I still really did enjoy the story. I loved this world. I love the off-campus series. I love these characters, and I really did still enjoy this book, and I would probably rate this one 4 stars. So that was my March reading wrap up. I really hope you guys enjoyed watching this video. Please let me know if you've read any of the books that I just mentioned, and let me know what your favorite book that you've read this month was. My April TBR video is already up, so I'll have that link down below if you haven't already checked it out, and I will see you all in my next video. Bye!